augmented reality is growing in popularity, and in this course, you will learn how to develop AR apps by building practical projects. The course consists of 4 different augmented reality projects, which are built on top of Unity Engine and AR Foundation. The projects will help you explore various fields such as engineering, education, e-commerce, and creativity. Priyanshu developed this course. He has a lot of experience developing AR apps, and he has created other popular courses on the topic.
In this free course, we are going to explore the possibilities of augmented reality by building such captivating and practical augmented reality experiences. We will start with Planet AR, in which we will be exploring planet Earth and other different planets like never before. We'll be exploring it, but that's not all. We will also delve deeper into the world of creativity by building an application that would actually help you plant different kinds of plants into your room. If we talk about the 4th project that we're going to build, we're going to explore the possibilities of e-commerce with that application. We're going to create an interior design application that would actually help us put different interiors, different sofas, chairs onto our room. I'm Priyanshu Bhattacharjee, co-founder and CTO of Antern, and I bring you this free comprehensive augmented reality course that is going to teach you to develop augmented reality experiences with the AR Foundation and Unity Engine. So without any further ado, let's move forward and learn how to build such captivating and amazing augmented reality experiences. Hey everyone, welcome to this lecture. And in this lecture, we are actually going to build our very first augmented reality project with AR Code and AR Foundation from the very scratch. I'm going to teach you how you can set up the project, how you can build the AR Foundation app to your devices, right? So without any further ado, let's move forward and let's learn what to do next. Okay, the very first thing you have to do is you have to open your Unity Hub and you have to create a new project. Now, if you don't have any Unity version installed, you can simply go to Installs option, click on Install Editor, choose the editor of your choice. Now, in this course, I'm going to use 2021, so you can simply click on Install, then select the Android build support because we are actually going to build for Android, and also select the iOS build support, and then you can simply click on Continue, accept the terms and condition, and simply click on Install. Okay. That's going to take a bit of time. It's going to take a lot of internet, like around 4-5 GBs maybe. So it's going to download the package, it's going to install. So give it the time it needs. Okay. And once the project, the Unity editor has been installed, what you can do is you can simply go to the project section. Now what you have to do is you have to create a new project. Now it is very simple to create a new project. What you have to do is you have to click on this new project button. And once you have clicked on that particular button, you will be able to find this option called editor version. Now you can choose any editor you want. Now for this course, I'm going to use 2021.3.15 F1. You can also go with any other version such as Unity 2019 or 2020. But I would suggest you to keep up with this video, that is use 2021 version of Unity. Now once you've selected the Unity editor, you will be seeing there are multiple options for templates, right? There's 2D, there's 3D, there's 3D mobile, 2D URP, then sample URP. I think there's HDRP also. Then there's a lot of examples that Unity has already coded for us, that Unity has already given us. But for now, for this video, we are gonna go with a blank project, and we are gonna select 3D core because we want to have the 3D functionalities. Now, if you want to build any sort of 2D game or anything, you can simply select the 2D core option. But for this video, I'm going to go with 3D core as we are going to need the 3D version of the editor. Once you have selected that 3D core option, what you have to do is you have to change the project. Now you can change the project name to anything. I'm going to keep it Planets AR. You can also keep it anything you want. And you can also change the location of the project if you want. Okay, and then simply click on Create Project. That's going to start the process and it's going to create the project for you. Okay. Now, once the project has been created, you will see this editor. Now, this editor is called Unity Editor. Now, within this editor, now what we have to do is we have to set up the project. Okay, we have to set up this Unity Editor so that it is able to build for Android devices and it should be able to support augmented reality. Okay, now just clear out your head now. Okay, just clear out your head and listen to me. Now, the very first process that you want to go through is switching your platform and setting up the project. The reason is you can set up the project later on also after importing the assets, doing everything. But the reason why you should set up your project at the very first, because let's say I have added multiple assets in the project folder. Okay, so what's gonna happen is, let's say I remove the graphics API, I switch my build platform. The switching part, the setting up part, it's gonna take a much longer time. Okay, and definitely we don't have that much time to wait for it to build and switch the project and all the process it needs to be done. So that's why you should always set up your project at the very first, then only import the required assets. So let's move forward. The very first thing you have to do is you have to click on File, go to Build Settings. Now, in the build settings, you'll be able to find multiple options in here, like there's Windows, Mac, Linux, dedicated server, Android, iOS, PS4, PS5. Now, now I want to build for Android devices only, so I'm going to select Android, but you can also build for iOS devices if you want. Now, there's one thing that you have to keep in mind, okay? The code base will be very much similar because we are going to use AR Foundation. Now, AR Foundation makes it easier for the developers to build for both iOS and Android. How? It provides two plugins called ARKit plugin and ARCore XR plugin. Now, ARKit is supported on iOS devices and ARCore XR plugin is supported on Android devices. So, if you want to build for iOS, you can simply install ARKit, and if you want to build for Android, you can simply install ARCore XR plugin. Okay, that's it. Nothing much, nothing too complicated. But again, like, if you want to use AR Core on iOS devices, that's also possible. You just have to install the application from the App Store. I think it's called as Google Services for AR Core, or maybe it's called AR Core. I'm not really sure, but there's a plugin for that. So you can simply install that within your iOS device and simply work with it, build the applications in there. And again, if you want to do the same for Android, that is built for AR Core, then make sure your Android device supports AR Core. Okay, there's a whole list where you can find if your device supports AR Core or not. And if it does, what you can do is you can go to Play Store and search for Google Services for AR. Okay, the link will be down below in the description. You can simply search for the app, or you can go through the link that will be given in the description and simply install that particular app. Because without that, the AR Core app won't work on your Android device. So I hope that's clear to you. So let's move forward. Now you have to select this Android option and click on Switch Platform. Now it's going to take a few minutes or a few seconds depending on your system to switch the platform. So give it the time it needs. Now, once it has switched its platform to Android, the next thing you want to do is we want to set up the project so that we don't have to go through the whole painful building process again, and it shouldn't take much time for you. Okay, we want to make sure that now once you once you have switched the platform, you at the very bottom left, you'll be able to find this player settings. So click on the player settings. From there, the very first thing you want to change is the company name. You can, of course, you can keep it as it is, but I would suggest to change the name, right? Keep it anything you want. So for now, I want to keep it Coded Reality because that's the name of my channel. And then there's, I'm just going to keep the product name as Planet AR because that's the most suitable name. Okay. Now, if you want to set any icon for the application, you can totally do that from here. Now, in the assets folder, I already have an icon, so I'm gonna show you how you can do that. Now, after that, in the resolution and presentation, you would want to go to this default orientation option and make sure to select the portrait option in here because we don't want the landscape left or landscape right or any other option there. We just want it to be in portrait mode. Of course, if you want, you can also keep it in landscape mode, but again, you have to design the UI that way. For now, I'm gonna show you how you can do the same, but for portrait mode. Now, once the orientation has been selected, the next thing you can do is you can simply go to other settings. Now, from there, make sure you uncheck this AutoGraphics API. Now, the reason why we are unchecking this AutoGraphics API because by default, our Unity project contains something called Vulkan, right? The Vulkan is another graphics API just like OpenGL, but the problem is AR code doesn't really support Vulkan. So if your project already has Vulkan and if you haven't removed it, AR core after building, right? AR core is gonna give you a lot of errors and your build won't complete. So we don't want the Vulkan graphics API. So I'm just gonna select the Vulkan from here and click on this minus. Now that's gonna remove the Vulkan API from our project. And once that has been removed, you can simply go to multi-threaded rendering and make sure to uncheck this multi-threaded rendering. Then again go below and you'll be able to find this option called minimum API level. Now make sure to set it to Android 7.0 because AR Core requires a minimum build level of Android 7.0. If you go below that, maybe 6.0, 5.1, and maybe below that, the problem is that it won't build, it's going to give you error. So you have to keep either Android 7.0 as the minimum API level or maybe above that. You can also keep 8.0, 7.1, 8.1, 9, 10, anything you want, okay? But just not below Android 7.0. Now, once that has been done, you have to change your scripting backend to IL to CPP. The reason is AR Core doesn't really support 32-bit architecture anymore. So you need to build it for 64-bit architecture. Now to do that, you have to set your scripting backend to IL to CPP. Because if we check out Mono, you won't be able to find this ARM64 option. Now to get this ARM64 option, you have to shift to IL to CPP and make sure to check this ARM64 option from there. And once that has been done, we are actually done for now with the player settings. We still have a few more settings to go through, but that will only be enabled when AR Foundation and AR Core has been installed. So to do that, simply close these windows, go to Window, go to Package Manager, then again from the drop down, select Unity Registry. Now from there, what you can do is give it the time to load. It might take a bit of time depending on your internet. Now it loaded very fast in my case. Now once the package has been loaded, what you can do is you can search for AR. Okay. Now once you search for AR, you'll be able to find this AR Foundation, AR Core, and ARKit example plugin. Now these are the three packages we need to focus on. If you are building for iOS, I would highly suggest to go with ARKit because I wouldn't suggest to go with AR Core. AR Core is best with Android. So keep it for Android only. And if you want to build for iOS, then go with ARKit. Don't worry, apart from the building process, everything is similar. You don't have to make any changes to your code. You don't have to make any changes to your project setup. Just whenever you are building, you have to set the project settings according to iOS. Okay. Now for this course, I'm going to use Android. So I'm going to simply install the AR Core example. But before that, you have to install this AR Foundation 4.2.7. So just select this version and click on install. Give it the time it needs for the installation. Now, once that would be done, we'll also be installing AR Core example. Now, AR Core is necessary to build AR experiences for Android. Now, as you can see, AR Foundation has been installed. The next thing you have to do is you have to click on AR example plugin and then click on install. Now, once both of these has been installed, what you can do is simply close this window. Again, click on File, Build Settings, click on Player Settings, and then go to this particular option, XR Plugin Manager. Okay. Now, in here, you will be able to find multiple options. That is AR Core, Oculus, and Unity Mock HMD. Now, Oculus and Unity Mock HMD is not something we want to mess with as of now. We want to do everything with this AR Core option. Okay. Now, this AR Core option is very important. You must check it out. The reason is, you can see in here, you are able to see a text called Initialize XR on Startup. Now, that means whenever you start your application, it's going to initialize the particular plugin you have checked it. So for me, I have checked AR Core. So it's going to initialize the AR Core plugin at the beginning of the starting of the application. Okay, so it is mandatory for you to check the AR Core option. If you don't do it, then AR Core won't be initialized at the very start, and you won't be able to use AR Core within your application. So make sure to check this option out. And once it has been checked, you can simply close this window. And now we have got our project set up very well. Okay. Now the next thing what you have to do is you have to delete the main camera. Okay. Once you have deleted the main camera, you have to right click in the hierarchy, click on XR, add an AR session origin, then again add an AR session. Now, AR session origin would be responsible for handling the camera, the plane tracking, the image tracking, the ray casting, and all the other things that are necessary for performing augmented reality. And the AR session will be controlling the whole life cycle of Unity and your AR application. So both of these components are mandatory, and you can see inside the AR session origin, we also have an AR camera, which will be capturing all the real world scenario and will be and this whole AR session origin will be helping you to place the object into the real. Okay. Now here you can see we have set up our project properly. We have set it up properly. And now what we have to do is we have to import the assets. Okay. But before that, let me change the name of the scene. Okay. So I'm going to keep it planets. Let's call it home maybe, or maybe let's call it home screen, because we want a home screen which will help us to navigate between different planets that we have in here. Now we are going to call this home screen. And another one, you have to create another scene. We are going to call that scene as ARC. Okay. Or let's do one thing, as we have already set this scene up for augmented reality. Let's call this scene as planet. Okay. Let's create another scene that will be having the default main camera, and we are going to call it home screen. Now, the reason I remove this main camera is because it renders the virtual scene. Okay. It actually renders this particular scene. So that's why I removed it. The AR camera would actually be rendering the real world. So that's why you have to add the AR camera if you want to perform augmentation. But as this is the home screen, it doesn't need any sort of augmentation. That's why we want to use the main camera as the default camera. Okay. Now, once both of the scenes are created, we want to import the assets. Okay. We simply want to import the assets. Now, I already have, if you see here, I already have a folder created in where I am having all the Unity assets stored. Now, this is the planets AR assets that we want to import. It's again fairly simple. Right click in the project setting, click on import, click on custom package, and simply import this planets AR assets. Now, again, you can do the same by simply dragging and dropping all the assets in here. So both of the way works. Choose the one you are comfortable with. Now, once you have dragged and dropped or maybe imported the package within your Unity screen, you will be able to find this particular window. Now, you have to simply click on the import option. That way, all the textures, all the files that are included in the package will be imported in your project file. So give it the time it needs. Yeah. Now here you can see that we imported our project. Now inside the asset folder, you will be able to find textures. Then there's planet textures that will be containing all the textures for the planets. Then there's UI texture that will be used for our user interface. Here you can also see that we got a logo. Now we will be using this logo also. That I also have a model for the Saturn. So we will be using all these in our project to get everything set it up. Okay. So once the assets have been imported, the next thing you want to do is let's create the UI. Okay, let's create the user interface first. Then we are going to move on to our augmented reality scene. Okay. So now once the home screen has been created, simply double click on it to open it. Then what you have to do is you have to right click in the hierarchy, click on UI, add a canvas. Okay. Now the canvas is actually going to help us to create UI for this whole scenario. And go to your game window and make sure to change it to some portrait. Okay. Now I actually already have some preloaded templates for myself. Now, if you want, you can also do the same for yourself. You can simply click on, if I show you, click on this option, right? And you'll be able to find this plus sign. If you click on this plus sign, you can name the device. You can add its width and height. Okay, that way you will be able to get the proper mode or the proper device you want to use. Now, for me, I'm going to use this OnePlus Nord CE2 Lite for myself. You can use any other UI you want. Okay, or let me select something in between. Maybe, yeah, Redmi Note 9 seems much better. So I'm going to go with Redmi Note 9. Now, here you can see that it's a blank canvas. Okay, and inside the canvas, we don't really have anything. And also, this is a really good feature that we have in Unity. If you click on this 2D option, you will be going on to the 2D mode. And once you go on to a 2D mode, you can double click on this canvas object and you can zoom out, or you can bring the canvas to your focus. This is a very useful feature that I think you should know about. Okay. Once you've instantiated your canvas, once you've added your canvas, what you can do is you can simply click on the canvas option. Then at the inspector, you'll be able to find this canvas scaler. Okay. Now, in the canvas scaler, you'll be able to find this UI scale mode. Make sure to change, it is actually by default set it up with the constant pixel size. We definitely don't want that. to make the UI responsive, we want scale with screen size. Okay, so make sure this to select the scale with screen size option. And once you select that, in the canvas, we want a background. Okay, we want a background so that not everything this whole weird looking background isn't visible. So the better way to do is right click in the canvas. You can either go to UI, add a panel in here, right? Or what you can do is you can simply add an image in here. Okay, we can also add an image, like go to UI, add an image in here, and then change the name of your image to background. Now, once you have selected the image, you might find this option called direct transform in the inspector if you select the image, right? And in there, you will be able to find a small box, right? So click on that box, press Alt in your keyboard if you are on Windows, and press Option on your Mac. So once you click the Alt button or Option button on your device, you can simply at the very bottom right, you'll be able to find the stretch option. So simply click on that stretch option, and you will be able to see that it has filled the whole image in there. Okay, it has filled the whole background. So we want to keep it to white as of now. And if we go to our assets and go to the textures option and click on UI textures, you'll be able to find this background. Okay, now what you can do is, now basically the assets are already set to texture type to sprite 2D and UI. But let's say if you import some other import some external image by yourself, you will be able to see that it will be set to this default option. Okay, now if it is set to default, just change it to sprite 2D and UI, because that's the option we are going to need. Now once you have selected the background, make sure to drag and drop this background image from the UI texture in here. You can see that we got a pretty neat and clean background for our UI. Now, once you have selected this particular background, you can add another image. Let's click on UI. Let's add an image. Now, this is going to be our heading. Okay, that is, it is going to contain the title for us. So I'm simply going to drag and drop this home header and click on set native size. And now reduce the size to maybe 0.5. Yeah, 0.5 seems much better. And to anchor this, right, without anchoring, this this planet's AR logo won't really be responsive. So you have to anchor it to the top. To anchor it, simply click on the heading, press Alt in your keyboard, open this option, anchor presets option in here, just simply press on the top. That way you will be able to set the this particular anchor to the very top. Now let's say if we change the resolution or maybe change the UI, you can see that it is adapting to the particular interface. Okay, and that's what we want. Now once you have added this particular heading, we also have to add a few buttons to navigate between the planets, right? Now again, it's pretty simple. First of all, I would like you to create an empty container. That way it would be much better for us to handle all the UIs. I mean the UI buttons. Let's name it button handler. Now what you can do is you can simply click on this button handler. Again, press Alt in your keyboard and make sure to stretch it out to the very top. And you can reduce or maybe change the top value by something 250 maybe. Yeah, change it by change the top value to 250. Now what you can do is you can keep on adding the buttons in here. Okay, and let's do it. Let's add this button handler. Let's click on this button handler, add a UI. Let's add an image in here. Let's anchor this image to the top, and let's reposition this image. Maybe let's move change the width and height to maybe 200. That would seem much better. Yeah, totally much better. And let's make it to 200. Okay, and minus 100. Now this looks this definitely looks much better. And let's change the image size name to maybe Earth. Okay. Now let's try minus 200. Yeah, this looks much better. Let's duplicate the button and put it to maybe the side, right? Let's put it to the side like this and change it to minus 200 and again minus 200. That way we got two different buttons for our planets. Okay. Now you can change it to maybe Mars, right? Similarly, you can do the same thing for other buttons, right? So for now, I'm just going to keep these two buttons. What you can do is you can replicate much more buttons in here. Like I already have options for Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Venus, and other planets too. So you can definitely do that. For now, let's keep these two buttons only. And the next thing you have to do is you have to select the Earth button, drag and drop this Earth texture in here, and again select the Mars button and drag and drop the Mars option in here. Now, definitely it seems like the spacing is too much. Let's increase the width to maybe 400. How about 350? Yeah, 350 seems much better. And the next thing you can do is, as these are images, right? These doesn't have the capability of button. Now, what you can do is select both the images, click on add component, and add a button component onto these images. Right now, if you click on these images, the buttons like these images will be clickable. Okay, so you can click on these images and set any functionality you want for now. Once we got the Earth and Mars button sorted out, we have to create a new UI. Okay, sorry, not UI exactly, but a new scene. So I'm going to call this planet scene to Earth. Now, once I've opened this Earth scene, what I can do is I can create a new sphere. Okay, that's going to contain the Earth planet. So I'm going to reset its transform, set the Z value to 5, or maybe how about 2? 2 seems much better. Maybe let's keep it to 4. Yeah, 4 would be 4 would look much better. The next thing you want to do is rename the sphere to Earth and then create a new material. Okay, so I'm going to create a new folder called material. Now I'm going to create a material called Earth. So, and then simply drag and drop this Earth material on top of that Earth object. Now, if you change the color, you will be able to see that the object is also changing the color according to the material. So that means our material has been applied properly. Once the material has been applied, what you can do is you can simply search for the Earth texture. Now we already have this 2K Earth day map. I'm going to select that, and you can see that we actually got the Earth texture in here. Now it might seem that it's a bit too flashy. You can definitely skim through the shaders that we have. You can search for you can simply click on this drop down option, search for unlit, and you can set it to texture. That way you'll be getting this option, but it definitely looks much more dull. Let's go for legacy shaders. Let's try diffuse. Yeah, this one looks much better. But I think the standard one was looking better, so let's keep the standard one only. But if you want to reduce the smoothness, you can definitely do that. Let's keep it to maybe 0.4. Yeah, 0.4 seems much better. And now you can see that we got our Earth properly set it up. Now, what you can do is we want this Earth to rotate, right? Because of course, Earth does rotate. So we have to write a new script. Okay, that script would actually be helping us to rotate the Earth. Now, again, it's pretty simple. So create a new folder called scripts folder. Now, inside this scripts folder, what we want to do is we want to write a script that will actually rotate the Earth on its axis. So I'm going to create a new script. Let's name it rotation controller. Okay. So let's give it the time to compile. And once it has compiled, just open the script in your IDE. I'm using Visual Studio. You can use Visual Studio Code, Sublime Text on any IDE you are comfortable with. Now, once the script has been opened, we want to create a public variable called public game object, Earth object, right? Let's call it, or maybe planet object. That would be much of a universal need. Let's call it planet object. Now, once you have created this particular variable, you also have to create another variable, other vector3 variable, to be honest. Okay. So let's create a vector3 variable, public vector3, and then name it rotation vector, because that would actually be helping us to control in which axis we want to rotate our Earth. Okay. So rotation vector. Now, within the update function, what you want to do is you want to reference, like take a reference to the planet object dot transform dot rotate, okay, and pass the rotation vector within this particular parameter as a parameter to the rotate function, and then multiply it with time dot delta. Okay, that's going to give us a much more realistic rotation value. Now, if we compile the script and add this script to the particular Earth and drag and drop the Earth object as a planet object, and let's play it. Okay. Now, right now you can see the Earth is not moving. So if you increase the value of this one, right, maybe how about 10? Yeah, 10 looks much better. So now what I can do is I can replace the value to 10. And now if I play it, you can see that we are the planet is actually moving, right? The planet is actually rotating. Now, next, you can replicate the scene, maybe duplicate the scene again. You can select the simple scene, press Ctrl D. That's simply gonna duplicate the scene and rename it to Mars. Okay, open that Mars scene and rename the object to maybe Mars. And then what you can do is you can either create a new material or again duplicate this material, change the name to Mars, and then select the Mars texture and simply drag and drop this texture in here. Now if we play it, you can see the Mars is also rotating properly, right? Now what's next? Okay, what's next? If we open this particular scene, if we go to the home screen and if we press on this particular button, we must be able to switch between scenes, right? If you press on Earth, then we should open the Earth scene. If we press on Mars, then we should open the Mars scene. Definitely, right? But it's not doing it right. So what should we do? Now, to perform that, we actually have to create a new script that would actually help us to switch between scenes. Okay. So again, it's pretty simple. Create a new script and call it scene controller. Okay. Now this scene controller will actually be having a method to switch between the scenes. So open this particular scene controller. Now you have to add using a directive. So using Unity engine dot scene management. Okay, once you've added that, simply create a new function, public void switch scenes, and make sure it takes a parameter or a string parameter, and let's name it scene name. Once you have created the parameter, the next thing what you have to do is you have to give a second. Create manager. You have to reference the scene manager and click on load scene, right? That is load the load scene method, and within that you have to pass the scene name. Okay, that way we'll actually be able to switch between multiple scenes that we have. So next, what you want to do is you can simply drag and drop this script to anywhere you want. Let's attach this scene controller to the canvas that we have, or maybe let's not add it to the canvas. Let's add it to the button handler. Okay. And the next thing what you can do is you can simply click on Earth and Mars, add the particular, go to this on click option, click on add option, and then simply drag and drop this button and handler in here. Then click on this no function, click on scene controller, and make sure to switch to this switch scenes option. Now you can keep the name of your scene. I'm going to name it Earth. And if I select Mars, I'm going to change it to Mars. Okay. Now, if we try to switch between the scenes, you can see that it is giving us error that Earth and Mars is not loaded. Okay, that it couldn't be loaded. So what you can do is you can simply click on File, Build Settings, click on Add Open Scenes. Just gonna add the home screen in here. Then go to your scenes option, add the Mars and Earth. Okay. Now, if you play this option, you can simply click on Earth and you can see that it has loaded the Earth scene. But again, there are no option for going back, right? We also have to add the option to go back to the home screen. Again, you have to do the things the same way. It's pretty simple. Okay, it's not too hard. So right click on the hierarchy, create a new canvas, change its UI scale mode to scale with screen size. Then what you can do is you can simply add an image. Now this image would be acting as a button, right? So I'm going to add the back texture in here. So you can see I added the back button texture. I'm going to click on set native size and reduce the size to maybe 0.2. Let's see how does it look. Not 0.2, definitely not 0.2, maybe 0.5. The 0.5 would be too big. Let's go for 0.4. Yeah, 0.4 seems much better. And then click on the select transform, select the anchor presets, press Alt on your keyboard and anchor it to the top. Okay. That way you'll be getting this particular button, and you can maybe, how about we keep it 150 and minus 100B. Okay. So that way we got the button in here. Now again, what you can do is you can simply add a button component. You can add the particular script in here, that is the scene controller script to the canvas. Click on this, like add an option to the on-click function, drag and drop this canvas in here. Then click on scene controller, click on switch scenes and give the name of your scene where you want to switch. Now again, what you can do is you can simply copy this too, right? Make sure to copy the canvas and the event system. Without the event system, your clicks won't be registered. Now you can go to the mask scene, add these two in here and just check if everything's fine. So you can see that everything is loaded as it should be. Now if we play this, you can see that we are able to navigate back and forth between the scenes. Now, this is it for this lecture. Okay, we actually created a fully functional AR application, and I'll be adding a small demo to this application at the very end of the video. Okay, so make sure to watch that demo also. And the task for this, the task for this lecture would be to add a few more planets up in the list. And also you can add an information panel that would actually be showing the information about these planets properly. Okay, so these are the tasks, these are the modifications that you can do to this project. And to build this project, what you can do is you can simply click on File, click on Build Settings, make sure all the scenes are added up in here, and then click on Build, give the name to your application. I'm going to click name it Build. And also before building, I forgot to show you, if you click on Player Settings, you can actually set your icon. Now, I already have an icon for this, so I'm going to click on this select option. Go and look out for the icon. It should be somewhere here. I guess I named it logo. So here you can see that we got the Planet AR logo. Now, if you build the application, you should be able, after building the application, if you install the application on your device, you will be able to see the application with this particular logo. So I'm simply going to name this application and build, and I'm simply going to save the build. Okay, so it's going to take a few minutes to build the application for you. So yeah, this is it for this lecture, and make sure you try to add a lot more features to this application. Believe me, it's going to be fun. Hey everyone, welcome to this lecture. And in this lecture, I'm going to teach you how you can build an augmented reality based simulation of a jet turbine. Sounds amazing, right? So let's get started. Why wait? So the very first thing you have to do is to set up this project. Now to set up this project, you have to create a project first. So to do that, what you can do is you can open your Unity Hub, click on this new project option, choose the Unity editor version you want to use. Now, for this course, for this lecture, I'm going to use 2021. You can also go for any other version, like I have 2020.3.40F1 also. So you can go for any other version you want. But I would suggest to keep up with 2021 as it is the latest version, latest stable version that we have right now. And so yeah, let's move forward. Now, once you've selected your editor version, right, the next thing you got to do is you have to select the template. Now, of course, there are multiple templates. There's 2D template, 3D template, 2D URP, 3D mobile, then 3D URP, 3D sample scene URP, and many other templates that you can download. But for this now, we want to start with a blank 3D template. So we are going to select the second option, that is 3D code. Now, once you have selected that particular option, you have to name your project. Now, what should you name? You can name anything, right? I can name it Jet Turbine Simulation. Right, I can name it this way. Then if you want to change the location of your project, you can totally do that. You just have to select this location option, click on it once, and then what you can do is you can simply select the folder you want to create the project. And once all these things have been done, you can simply create project. Now, if you don't have any Unity editor installed, what you can do is you can simply go to install, click on install editor, select the Unity version. So this is the latest version that is out there, that is 2021.3.17 F1. What you can do is you can simply click on install, select the Android build support, because if you want to build for Android, you are going to need it. And if you want to build for iOS, you can select that. And then click on continue, agree the license, and then click on install. Okay, and then it would start downloading and installing the editor and all the packages that is necessary for building for Android and iOS device. And then you can again create the project, give it a few minutes to create the project, and then we can get started. Now, once you have created the project, this particular editor window will be opening up, right? This is the Unity editor window. And in here, the very first thing we have to do is we have to set up this project so that we can build for Android. And it should also support augmented reality. Now, you already know for all these 4 projects that we are going to develop, we are going to use something called AR Foundation and AR. So AR Foundation is more of like a universal package in where you can add the AR kit and AR code plugin that would actually help you build cross-platform AR applications. So now, before setting up all of that, okay, what you have to do is you have to click on File, click on Build Settings, and then switch to the Android build if you are building for Android. Or if you are building for iOS, you can simply switch to the iOS build. Okay. But for now, we want to keep it to Android only. So what we are going to do is we are going to select the Android build and then click on Switch Platform. Now, this is a small tip that I always follow. Basically, what happens now, if there are already assets available within your editor window, that is within your project itself, it's going to take a lot more time to set up this whole project. Okay. Because it's going to convert all the materials, all the assets to the related versions. And to avoid that kind of time, what we want to do is we want to switch to the build platform, set up everything at the very first before importing all the assets that we have. Okay, so that's what I do always, and believe me, that saves me a lot of time. So I would recommend you guys to do that. Now, once your platform has been switched, the next thing you can do is you can simply click on Player Settings. Now, from Player Settings, you can change the company name. I'm gonna change it to Coded Reality. Okay, because that is my channel's name. Then you can change the product name to maybe Jet Turbine. And then if you have any sort of icons for your application, you can add the icon to the folder and then select it in here. That way you can also add a logo for your application. And once all these have been done, you have to go to your resolution and presentation. Now, we want this app to be in landscape mode. Okay, so for that, what we are going to do is we are going to go to this default orientation, and I want to check out landscape left. Okay, once you have selected landscape left, what you have to do is you have to click on again other settings. Make sure to uncheck this auto graphics API, because we want to remove this Vulkan API from it. Okay, because AR code doesn't really support Vulkan, so we have to remove that, or else you will be getting errors while building the application. So we are simply going to remove that Vulkan API. Once that has been removed, what you can do is you can turn off this multi-threaded rendering, as we are not going to need it, and then go directly below to this minimum API level and set it to Android 7.0, because that is the minimum API level that AR Core actually supports. If you are choosing any version below that, you are gonna face errors. So make sure to keep it 7.0 or above 7.0. Okay, and then we're gonna have to shift our scripting back into IL2CPP. Okay, now once we shift the scripting back into IL2CPP, you can check this ARM64. The reason we are doing this is AR Core doesn't really support 32-bit architecture. It only supports 64-bit architecture. So you have to shift towards 64 architecture. And with Mono, that's not really possible. Like if you check Mono, you won't be able to, you won't be having this option for ARM64. So to get that ARM64 option, you have to switch towards IL2CPP. And here's another tip. IL2CPP builds are much more optimized and much more faster in terms of loading. IL2CPP builds are much more faster and much better and much optimized than Mono builds. So whenever you are deploying your app to production, make sure to do it in IL2CPP scripting. Okay. And once you are done with this, the next thing you have to do is you have to install the plugin. You have to install the AR Foundation plugin, and also you have to install the AR Code Exa plugin. And if you are on iOS, then you have to install AR Kit plugin. And also here's another thing. AR Code is also supported on iOS devices. Okay, so if you want to stay up with AR core only, what you can do is you can simply install AR core plugin and also install the AR core from Apple's App Store. Okay, that way you'll be able to run AR core on iOS devices also. But I think it's much better to use ARKit only, because ARKit has much more functionality. To be honest, like body tracking that AR core doesn't have. So I always, if you are on iOS, right, always try to use ARKit as much as possible rather than using AR core. And if you are using Android, then definitely AR core is the way to. Now, to set up this project for augmented reality, you have to click on Window, then click on Package Manager. From there, you'll be able to find this particular drop down right at the top. So you have to click on that drop down and select Unity Registry. So give it the time to load, right? And once it loads the packages, you'll be able to find a lot of options in here. It's confusing. I understand that. But to sort everything out, just search for AR, right? With AR, you are going to find a lot of different packages. Now, for this tutorial, we're going to need AR Foundation and AR Core Exa plugin. And if you are choosing to install AR Kit plugin also, there won't be much difference in building, setting up the project, the coding part. But yeah, the building part will be different. The deploying part will be different for AR Kit. So I'm going to stick with AR Core and AR Foundation. I'm going to click on AR Foundation. The version I'm going to use is 4.2.7, as this is a stable version. I'm simply going to click install. Give it the time to install the packages. Give it the time to install the AR Foundation packages. And once it is done, what you can do is you can also install the AR Core Exa plugin. Now, as you can see, we already installed the AR Foundation package. The next thing we have to install is AR Core Exa. So I'm going to simply install it. And do you know the benefit of using AR Foundation? AR Foundation helps us to include both AR Core and AR Kit plugin. So with a single code base, you can build for both the platforms. It brings a more cross-platform functionality for AR. So I really like using AR Foundation and AR Core other than using any other SDK that is out. Now, once you have installed both the packages, right, you have to go to your player settings again and make sure that AR Core gets initialized whenever it is built first. So what you have to do is you have to click on player settings, then simply go to Exa plugin management and make sure to check this plugin provider. Okay, if you don't check this AR Core AR Core option in the plugin providers, the AR Core part won't be initialized when you start the application, which is definitely not the thing we want. We want AR Core to initialize whenever the app has been started. So we want to check this particular option. And then what you can do is you can rename your scene. I'm going to rename my scene to Jet Turbine. Okay. And once I rename the scene, you can see that we got the scene name as Jet Turbine at the very top. And also before setting up the scene, I just want to make sure that all the settings in the player settings are totally fine. So let me go through that once. We got the graphics API sorted. We got the multi-threaded rendering sorted out. We also got the minimum API level sorted out. We got the scripting backend and the ARM64 option sorted out. Now, there's one more thing. If you want to uncheck this ARM v7 option, the 32-bit option, you can do that. Let me keep it for now. But if you want, you can also uncheck that. And everything seems fine. And in the Exa plugin management also, we got the AR Core plugin provider checked. So we got everything set up for our project so that it supports AR. Now, so that our scene also supports AR, we have to delete the main camera, because this camera is the virtual camera and it only records the scene, only gives this game view, right? We want the real world view, so that we want the AR app to access our camera and then place the objects there. So to do that, AR Foundation has something called AR Session Origin. So what you can do is you can simply right click in the hierarchy, click on XR, add an AR Session Origin, and then again click on XR, add an AR Session. Now, definitely you already know what this AR Session Origin does. It basically handles all the camera and all the plane management and everything that is out there, all the functionalities. And this AR Session actually handles the whole life cycle of augmented reality and Unity. So it is mandatory to have both of these components in here. Now, once you have these components, what you have to do is just create a few folders. The first folder I want to create is called the script folder. Okay, because this particular folder is very necessary. Other than that, we want to create a prefabs folder in case we need it. And then we also want to create a materials folder, okay, in case we need it. Now, I already have packaged the assets for you guys. Okay, it's already packaged in a Unity package. So what you have to do is you simply have to download that package from the link given below. And once you download that particular package, you have to simply import it. The process is very simple. Once you download it, you can see that I have this folder called Unity Assets. Now, what I'm going to do is either I can simply drag and drop this folder in here, right? Or I can simply click on import package, select the custom package, go to the location of the folder and simply open it. That way, you can see that we got a lot of options in here. You don't have to get confused between these options. What you just have to do is you have to click on import. Okay. Once these packages are imported, you will see an assets folder. Now, within that asset folder, there is an audio file. Another one is this jet engine folder, which contains the prefab for the jet engine. Now, what you have to do is you have to simply drag and drop this jet engine in this particular hierarchy, and you will be able to see that this particular jet engine has been positioned correctly. Now, this is the preferred position. This is the position I tested out this application with. So that's why I've kept this position. If you want to change it, like if you want to move it a bit more forward, what you can do is you can simply use this anchor to move this thing much more farther from the camera. For now, I would just want to keep it to 2 as it is much more of a preference. And then I have made the rotation to 90. Okay, you can also keep it that way, but I would suggest to keep it to 90 or maybe 180. Okay, if you want to see the front view directly from the camera. But for now, I just want to keep it to 90. That way, I'll be able to get the broader view. Okay, and now here you can see that we got our project setup. We got the jet turbine in here. What about the functionalities? We need to code something. Right? We just don't want to augment this. It's pretty simple. We just don't want to augment this thing. What we want to do is just a second. Right? Just a second. Here you can see that this AR session origin is at the top, right? So we don't want it at the top. We want it at the center. So what you can do is you can simply click on this transform. Like click on this particular AR session origin. Go to the inspector, and in this transform, you will be able to find this 3 dots. Click on that and simply reset the transform. Now you'll be able to see the object, right? The game object in here, the turbine in here. Okay, let's talk about the functionality. Now, within this app, we want some interactivity. Or this app will be boring, right? This is more of an educational application, which is going to teach people about a jet turbine. So how should we do this? Now, the basic mechanism that I'm going to teach you today is to, you can disable some part of this particular model. Like, let's say if I want to see the internal parts of this particular, this jet turbine, what I can do is I can simply disable this hull to see what is exactly inside this particular jet turbine. And if I want, I can also enable it. Okay, that way we'll be able to get a much more broader view, much better view of this particular jet turbine. Okay, so to do that, it's actually pretty simple. Okay, but before getting to that mechanism, I want this particular jet turbine, that is this particular, what is that called, rotor or blades. I want this blades to rotate. Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to write a very simple script. Okay, so what you have to do is go to the script folder, right click, click on create, and create a new C# script. You can call this script as rotation controller. You can name it anything. I'm just going to name it rotation controller as it sounds much better. Now let the script compile. And once the script has been compiled, just open it within your Visual Studio or any other editor that you are using. I'm using Visual Studio for now, so I'm simply going to use that one. So give it the time. Okay. Now here you can see that we got the start and update method. So let's remove all of these. Okay. We are going to need the update method, but before that, let's create a variable. Now we are going to create a public vector3 variable. Now you will see why I am exactly creating a vector3 variable pretty soon. So give it the time. Okay, once you have created this particular vector3 variable, you have to go to the update method. Then what you have to do is you have to write transform.rotate, and inside that you have to pass this rotation vector and then multiply it with time.delta time. Okay, so that way you'll be able to rotate your rotational motors. Okay, that is these blades. So let's give it the time. to load. Yeah. So as you can see, once we got this particular script loaded up, compiled, what you can do is you can search for the turbine, and then that is this blade. Let me show you. It should rotate something like this. So to do that, what you can do is you can simply first of all select the turbine option. Once I've selected that, just simply add this rotation script in there, and then maybe change the Y value. Let's say in which axis is it rotating. So it is rotating in the Y axis. So I'm gonna simply change it to maybe 100. Okay. And once I've changed the value to 100, you can check if it is rotating by playing the scene. So let's see. As you can see that, yeah, we are able to rotate the particular jet turbine in a certain direction. Okay. So our jet turbine is rotating. It seems more realistic now. Let's add the other functionality, that is enabling and disabling the objects in here. Okay. And before we do that, we are going to create a simple UI. So what you have to do is you have to go to the hierarchy, right click up in there, go to the UI option, then search for this canvas. Okay. Now canvas would actually help us to create the UI. Now I'm going to shift to a much better landscape view. I'm going to use this particular OnePlus Nord CE2 Lite device resolution. This is the device that I am using for testing. So I'm going to use this resolution for now. If you want, you can also try to find some resolution of the devices that you want to add, and simply click on this add option, give its name, and then width and height of the device. That way you'll be able to create all these options that I have created for myself. So let's revert back, and here you can see that we got the canvas option. Now in here you'll be able to find something called canvas scaler. From there you'll be able to find this UI scale mode. Make sure to change it to scale with screen size. Once you have changed it, this would actually help you to make the UI much more responsive. Now, once you have changed the canvas scaler option, create a button. Okay. So I'm going to create a button text mesh pro. Now, if you're creating a text mesh pro button, it should prompt a TMP importer. Simply click on import TMP essentials. Give it the time to load. Once that particular thing has been loaded, just edit the button once, right? Just see if you can resize it a bit, just for make it to look much more cleaner, much more better. So I'm just gonna do it this way. So, yeah, this one looks much better. Let me center it, right? So I did center it. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna maybe reduce the scale a bit, maybe 0.5. Yeah, 0.5 looks much better. So let's change it to, okay, let's change it to 0.8. Yeah, this is much more visible. Yeah, 0.8 is much more visible. And then what you have to do is simply click on this rig transform option. From there, press Alt in your keyboard. Okay, if you are on a Windows PC, press Alt, and if you are on a Mac, I think Option is for an alternative for it. So you have to click on Option, and then you have to select this particular option so that it anchors to the bottom right. Okay, now once it has been anchored, what you can do is you can maybe increase the position a bit. Maybe let's see. Yeah, this looks much more cleaner. And let's name this button as Hual. Okay. Let's copy the name and again do the same. Add this same for the text and make it a bit bold. Yeah, this particular button looks much more clean, right? Doesn't it? It definitely looks much more clean. If you want, you can also create a much better button through Figma or maybe some other UI designing tools. I'm going to use the default one that Unity is providing. Now I'm going to duplicate that particular button, right? And let's see what else do we have. We have the tubes. Okay, we definitely want to disable and enable the tubes. So I'm going to give it tubes. Okay, so we got the tubes in here. Now, again, go change the text of it to tubes. And then here's a pretty neat trick that I really like. Just add this to maybe 120, maybe 110. This value actually depends on the UI. So I'm going to add it as 110. Now I'm again going to duplicate it, right? Let's see what else could we add. We had something called grid. Yeah, we got the grid. Now I'm also going to change the name to grid. Then again minus 110. And then again change the text to grid. Okay, just a second. Yeah. So once I've changed the text to grid, I also add another button for the pistons. So I'm going to simply duplicate it, name this button pistons, copy this, again go to the text, change the text to pistons, then select the button again, add 110 there, and you can see that we got all the buttons positioned properly. Okay, now if we, let's say, change the UI to something else, you can see that it is pretty much responsive and it is, working flawlessly as it should. Now, once these buttons are added, okay, what you have to do is you have to make sure that once you click this button, it should disable and enable the objects that we have. To do that, we have to create a script. So right click in the project folder, that is the scripts, then click on create and create a new script. Let's call it mesh. Okay, just a second. Mesh toggler. Once you have created the script, let it compile. Okay, so the script is compiled. I have opened it. The very first thing you have to do is you have to create a variable called game object, okay, and name it. Naming a variable is really hard for me. It takes a lot of time. Okay, let's name it Turbine object. Okay, and once I've added this particular variable, the next thing you have to do is you have to create a Boolean value. Okay, let's keep it private for now. So private Boolean, and let's name it is active. Now, of course, at the very first of the start of the application, all of the objects will be active. So we want to set it to true. And within the, within this particular script, we also want to create another function that will actually help us. Like if we call that function, it is going to help us to disable and enable the object. So to do that, I'm going to create a public void, that is public function, public void. Let's call it toggle. Now, once you write this function, what you have to do is you have to check if the mesh is active or not. Now we want to check this through this is active Boolean. So if is active, what you want to do is you want to set the turbine object to false. So turbine object dot set active to false, and also change the value of is active to false. Okay, that way we will make sure that we are getting the exact value, or able to switch on and off the objects. Now you have to add an else block. Now within that else block, you have to again do the same, but in the else block you have to turn the objects active, right? That is, you have to make sure that objects are true. The objects are actually on. So yeah, this is it. This is the whole script. This script is actually going to help us toggle between the objects. So once you have saved the script, simply let's load it. Now, as you can see that we got the script loaded up. Now, the next thing you have to do is you have to select the objects you want to disable and enable. So I'm going to select the hull. Then I'm going to select the tubes, then the pistons, then the grids. Okay. Now I'm simply gonna drag and drop this mesh toggle option in here. Then in the hull, I'm simply gonna drag and drop this hull object. Then in the tubes, I'm gonna add this tubes. Then in the pistons, I'm gonna set this object to piston. Then in the grid, I'm gonna do the same for the grid. Okay. Once you have done all of that, select the buttons. Go down below to the on click. Make sure to click on add, and first of all, try adding one. Okay. Change. The next thing you have to do is you have to select the first button. You can see, right? Once the hull object has been selected, if you click on the no function drop down, you'll be able to see something called this mesh toggle. Okay, this is the name of our script. And if your method, right, if your this particular function is public, you should be able to see that function in here. So I have this toggle function. I'm simply going to click on this toggle function, and let's try this particular option out. Right? Let's see if it is enabling or disabling the mesh or not. So if you click the button, you can see that it is enabling and disabling the mesh. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to do all of the same thing that we have done till now for the other buttons also. So I'm going to select the tube, then search for the tubes option, drag and drop it in here, select the mesh toggler, select toggle, then again same for grid. I'm going to search for the grid option in here, mesh toggler, toggle, and again Same for the pistons. So as you can see now, if we play it, you can see we can enable the hull, we can enable and disable the tubes, we can enable or disable the grids, we can also enable and disable the pistons we have. Okay, so this is it for this now. Now, of course, after you have built this whole application, you want to test it out, right? So how to do that? Again, it's pretty simple. You have to click on File, click on Build Setting. Now, you can see that we have the scene active. We have the jet turbine scene active. Now, there are two ways to add a scene. One you can do is you can simply drag and drop this scene in here. And the way is that you can click on Add Open Scene. Now, this is going to add the active scene in here. That is the scene that is opened up within your editor. So it right now I have the jet turbine scene open. So it has added the jet turbine scene in here. And once you have added the scene, you can either click Build and Run. Now, the Build and Run option will only work if your phone has developer options turned on and also it is connected to your device. Another one would be the build option. Okay? You can simply click on build, name the application, anything. So I'm going to name it Jet Turbine and then click on save. That way your application will start building and you can test your application the way you want. Okay. Another thing you have to keep in mind is that if you want to test your application, make sure the Google services for AR is installed within your phone. You can simply search it on the Play Store. And also make sure your device is supported. Okay, that is, it supports AR code, because a lot of the device does not support AR code. So if your device does not support AR code, that means you won't be able to run this application. So make sure to check that out. And once you have done all that, you have built the application, you can simply install it and test the application out by yourself. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to add a clip that will actually show you the demo of the particular application. Okay. So in this lecture, we are actually going to build an augmented reality application that would actually help us plant multiple different plants on our surrounding area. All right. And to do that, we are going to use some specific features such as raycast and AR plane managers. So without any further ado, let's move forward. And to get started with the project, I want you guys to create a new project with the Unity engine. I'm using the same version that I was using in the previous project. So I would suggest you to go with that same version. So right now, what we have to do is we have to integrate the AR Foundation and AR Core package. And I already know you guys already know it, but let me show you how you can do that again. So first of all, you had to go to the package manager. Then you have to from the package, you have to select this Unity registry. Once you've selected that, you have to search for AR Foundation and then simply install this AR Foundation version. And the version I'm using is 4.2.7. Okay, so now that we have installed the AR Foundation plugin, what we have to do is we have to also install the AR Core plugin. So I'm simply going to search for the AR Core plugin in here and simply install it. So now that you have installed the AR Core XR plugin, what you have to do is you have to set up your project so that you are able to build it for your Android devices. So go to File, click on Build Setting, switch your platform to Android. Now, once you have switched your platform to Android, you have to go to Player Settings. And from Resolution and Presentation, I would want you guys to change your default orientation to Portrait. You can also keep it to Auto Rotation if you feel so. But after that, you have to remove this checkmark from AutoGraphics API and remove the Vulkan API as it is not supported by AR Core. You also have to turn off multi-threaded rendering and also change the minimum API level to Android 7.0. Once you have done that, you have to change the scripting backend to I2CPP so that it supports 64 architecture, because AR Core doesn't really build for a 32-bit architecture and it may cause you a lot of errors. And once you have changed your scripting backends, what you have to do is you have to go to XR plugin management and make sure to enable AR code plugin provider. Once you have done all of these, delete the main camera from your scene, then click on XR, add an AR session origin, and then again add an AR session. Now, once both of these are added, select the AR session origin, add two components, AR Raycast Manager, and then the AR Plane Manager. Now, the AR Raycast Manager would actually help us throw rays to different like the planes that would be generated in real time. And the AR Plane Manager would actually help us to generate those planes, those artificial planes on top of the ground, okay, by detecting the ground. So now let's now all these setups are done right now. The next thing what we have to do is we have to import the assets. Now I already have the assets written, so I'm simply going to click on import package, custom package, then select this garden plants asset and simply import it. Now, once the assets have been imported, what you have to do is you have to create a few more folders. One would be for the scripts. Now, I'm going to create another folder for a material. Okay, so I'm going to show you what exactly I'm creating that folder for and what we have to do in there. So once the materials, just a second. So once the material folder is created, create a new material called plain material. Okay, so I'm going to call it plain transparent matte. Okay, and do one thing. Once you've selected this plain material, go to rendering mode and change it to transparent. And once you have done that, go to the albedo section. From there, you have this alpha channel. Decrease it down to 0. That way, you will have a fully transparent material on your head. And once those things have been done, also you can try reducing the smoothness. And once all of these are done, what you can do is you can simply go to the hierarchy, right click in here, select XR, and then add an AR default plane. Now, make sure to prefab this AR default plane. But before that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply select this materials option in here and drag and drop this material options into the element 0. I mean the plain material into the element 0. Once that has been done, you have to create another folder called prefabs. And then you have to drag and drop this AR default plane and delete it from the hierarchy. And then select the AR session origin again and simply drag and drop this plain prefab, this AR default plane into the plain prefab folder that is available in the plane manager. Now, the reason I did this, because you will be able to visualize the planes that are being generated. Okay, so the planes would be transparent with a black border. You can totally see that in the demo at the very end of the video. So whenever you will be trying to scan your ground, multiple different planes will be generated, and those planes will have this transparent material. Okay, that will actually help you to visualize that, yeah, there are multiple planes that are being generated. And that's where if you shoot the raycast, it should disable the plane and also place the plants. Okay, and we are going to implement that mechanism right now. Now, let me make you go through the prefab ones that contains all the plant models. So if you go to assets, you will find this folder called models. From there, there is this folder called plants, and in here you'll be able to find this prefab. Now, I think there are in total 12 plants that are totally available. Yeah, there are total 12 plants that are available. Now, the next thing you have to do is you have to write the script so that it can hold those plants and randomly place those plants onto the floor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a scripts folder, create a new script, and let's call it plant placement manager. Once the script is created, give it some time to compile. Once the script has compiled, what you can do is you can simply open the script in your editor. Now, I'm using Visual Studio Code for this. You can use Visual Studio ID 2 and any other ID that supports Unity engine. Okay, so let's understand what do we have to do in the script. Before that, let's understand what exactly are we going to implement. Now, the basic implementation would be after the ground planes are detected, right? After the grounds are detected and the planes are placed in there, whenever I tap on the screen, it should place the plants in that particular position. Okay. Now, of course, to make this happen, there are multiple components we have to work with. We have to work with the Raycast manager, we have to work with the plane manager, and we also have to work with the session origin. And along with that, we also have to store all the hits, right? Whenever you tap on the screen, it should be it would be registered as a hit. So whenever the hit happens, it should store those positions in there. Okay. So let's implement this whole script. So the very first thing is we have to create a placeholder that would actually hold all those particular plant models in there. Okay. So to do that, you have to write a public variable and you have to give it the data type of game object. Now it should be an array because we want to store multiple objects, and I'm going to call this variable as flowers. Okay, because it will be storing all the flowers that are in there. Now save this and then go to your Unity engine. Add this particular script to your AR session origin and make sure to add on the plants that are already available. Okay, so I'm going to go to the prefab, and the easiest way to do is to directly drag and drop whole plant objects directly in that particular array. So before doing that, what I'm going to do is in the inspector menu at the right of it, you will be able to see this lock option. So just click on it. Now, if you select any of these models, or you can say prefab, it won't really change the inspector menu. And what you can do is you can select all of these models right here. And once you've selected those, you can directly drag and drop it inside this particular script. And you can see we got all the 12 elements, or you can say 12 plants directly inside this particular placeholder that we created as an array. Now, what you can do is you can again unlock all of these so that you don't have, it doesn't get stuck to that property. Now, once you have done that, go back to the script again. Now, once you've opened the script, you have to reference the plane managers that we have in here. Okay, we have to reference the plane manager, we have to reference the Raycast manager, and also the AR session origin. So to do that, what you have to do is you have to write 3 more public variables that would contain public AR session origin. Okay, also, I forgot, before this, you have to include 2 different namespaces because it contains all the necessary functions for AR Foundation to be able to script. Okay, so to do that, you can simply write using Unity engine .xr.ar foundation. Just a second. Yes, .ar foundation. And then you also have to add using Unity engine .xr.ar subsystem. Okay, so these 2 files, that is these 2 namespaces, contains all the important functionalities that we need AR Foundation to provide us. Okay, so for example, we have to create a new variable and we have to call it AR session origin. Okay, and we have to name it session origin. Now this AR session origin component is a part of this AR Foundation namespace. Okay, similarly, you have to create another variable and we have to call it AR Raycast manager. And I'm going to name this variable as Raycast manager, and I'm going to create another script called AR plane manager because we will be doing a few tasks with the planes. That's why we are going to need the AR plan manager. Okay, so I'm going to name it plane manager. Once these variables are set up, what you can do is you can simply go to your Unity engine and then from there drag and drop the AR session origin in this component. Again, drag and drop the AR Raycast manager and also the plane manager. Okay, once these managers have been added in here, the next thing you have to do is you have to write you actually have to create a list that would contain all the hit positions, right? All the Raycast hits that have been done. Now, I will tell you what exactly is the significance of that. But for now, let's create that particular list. So you have to make it private list. It should be of type AR Raycast hit. Okay. And then also name it, I'm going to name it Raycast hits. And then I'm going to create a new object of it. So new list AR Raycast hit, and we have created, or you can say initialized our list in this particular scenario, in this particular script. Now we also have to write an update condition, okay, or you can say update loop, in which we have to check for if the person has tapped on the screen or not. Okay, so to do that, what you have to do is you have to write this update function in here, Once this update function is in place, you have to check if the person has touched the screen or not. So to check that, what you can do is you have to write this if condition, if input dot get touch, okay, and then you have to set the parameter of the touch index to 0, and then phase equals touch phase dot began. Okay, this means that if you have touched the screen or not. Okay, and if you have touched the screen, the next thing we want to do is we want to shoot a raycast. Okay, we want to shoot a raycast, and once the raycast has been shot, we want to place the objects, right, randomly. We want to randomly place the objects randomly. And then at the very end, what we want to do is we want to disable the plane manager, and also we want to remove all the planes, or you can say disable all the planes that have been generated. Okay, so that the planes don't really become a blockage to our visuals. So what we want to do is we want to disable the planes and the plane manager. And the reason why we want to disable the plane manager is because we don't want the planes to be generated all over again. Okay, once they have been disabled. So that's why. Now let's get to the first part. We want to shoot the raycast, right? So what we have to do is we have to reference the raycast manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference the raycast manager as raycast manager. Then I'm going to click put the dot and ask for the raycast function. Inside that raycast function, you have to pass this input dot mouse position. Okay. Now mouse position in your Android device would actually result in the position of your screen where you have touched, right? If I am touching at a certain position of my screen, it will return that particular position within this particular function. Okay. And once the mouse position has been set up, actually, I did something wrong in here. Okay. What I did was I gave this parenthesis in here and then a 0 in it. You don't have to do that. Okay. And once this input dot mouse position is there, the next thing what you have to do is you have to pass the raycast hits list that we just created. Okay. Now, actually, the raycast hit contains all the position of the raycast that has been shot. So we need this raycast list, and we want to store all the whenever we are touching, right? Whenever our touch has happened, it is shooting a raycast. So we need to store that raycast into a certain variable, or you can say into a certain list, right? Because we want to access that raycast hit, because it will be giving us the position. And whenever we touch, right, at wherever position we are touching, we want the plant to be placed in that position. So raycast hit is actually going to return us those position. Okay, so we are going to need the raycast hits, and then what we have to do is you have to set the trackable type to plane with polygons, within more polygons. Okay, and once this has been done, terminate the statement with an semicolon. Now this is going to return a Boolean value. Okay, this is actually going to return us a Boolean value. Now, as this function, as this script, or you can say statement we wrote, is going to return us a Boolean value, what we have to do is we have to store it in a variable, Boolean variable. So I'm going to call it collision variable, right? So whenever this particular collision Boolean is true, what we want to do is we want to place those objects. Okay, we want to place those objects on our ground. So if collision game object, I'm going to call this as object. You can also call it as a flower. I am going to instantiate that particular object. Okay, instantiate flowers. Now take the index of the flowers, and now what we want to do is we want to generate a random number from 0 to the n-1, that is the length -1, so that we are able to get all the flowers from that scenario. So random dot range 0, flowers dot length -1. So that way we'll be able to get all the flowers randomly, and we'll be able to instantiate them. And once these flowers have been instantiated, what we want to do is we want to set their position to where we have actually tabbed. So to do that, object dot transform dot position equals raycast hits 0 dot pose dot position. Okay, so this is why we have actually created that list called raycast hit, because it actually stores the position of the raycast that has been shot onto the ground. And that is how we are actually going to place those objects. So I hope this particular topic about raycast heads is pretty much clear. Now, the next thing we want to do is, now, basically, the script that we created, this would be enough for this experience to work. But the problem with that will be is that we are generating those planes, right? So it has some material, so it will be visible on top of the ground. And we don't really want that because that will be a visual blockage and won't really be looking good at all, right? So to do that, you have to loop through that whole planes and disable them one by one. So we are going to write a for each loop. So inside that for each loop, we are going to reference all the planes that are being created. So to do that, var plane in plane manager dot trackables. Okay. And once you have got those planes, what you have to do is you have to disable them one by one. So I'm going to call plane.gameObject.setActive and set it to false. So whenever the whatever number of planes that have been generated, they get disabled as soon as I touch the particular screen. Okay. And then what we want to do is, after the planes have been disabled, we want to disable the plane manager also. Plane manager dot enabled equals false. So that way, after you've disabled the planes, we are disabling the plane manager because we don't want any more planes to be generated. Okay. And now that we are done with the script, what you can do is you can simply save this particular script and go to a Unity engine editor and just make sure you have added all the flowers and also all the components that were there, that is the managers. You have added all the managers. Once you have done all of that, what you can do is you can simply change your scene name to main. You can also call it app or anything you want, and then go to file, build settings, click on add open scenes, or you can simply drag and drop the scene in here. Then go to player settings and change the product name to anything you want. Now I'm going to name it garden flowers. You can change it to anything you like, right? And once that has been done, you can simply click on build and start building the application right there. Okay. And I'm also going to attach a demo of this whole project at the very end so that you are able to see what we have built during this project. And if you have any doubt, make sure to join our Discord server, or you can email me. You can go through my LinkedIn and ask me there. Also, you can ask it on my Instagram. Okay. And so I hope that you have enjoyed this particular project. I will see you in the next project. Thank you. Hey everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, I'm going to teach you about building an furniture-based try-on application. So in this application, the base idea is that you will be able to place multiple different furnitures at your room with the help of, again, AR Foundation and AR Code. And apart from that, we will also be able to switch between those furnitures with the help of 3 different buttons that we will be designing in this project video. Now, the challenge in this video is what happens generally whenever you are let's say we ignore the very basic things, right? Just with the simple placement stuff. So what basically is going to happen if you touch on the UI buttons, it is going to react with the touch screen also, right? By that, what I mean is, let's say you are trying to place some object, you have placed it, and then you are trying to switch into some other furniture also, right? So once you are tapping that button, even while tapping that button, it is going to place that furniture in there, which is a big challenge. And I'm going to show you how to solve that problem easily in this particular lecture. And of course, there are a lot of things that we are going to learn. And I hope that it clarifies all the doubts you have till now with plane manager, recast, and all of those stuff, right? So without any further ado, let's move forward and set up the project first. The very first thing you have to do is you have to go to File, then Build Settings, then switch it to Android. Now, this is the usual settings that we do before building, or you can say start coding our project. So you have to again do that whole process again. I'm going to show it to you again, so that won't be a problem. Now, once your build platform has been switched to Android, the next thing you have to do is you have to install the AR Foundation and the AR Core XR plugin. So to do that, just go to Windows, then Package Manager, go to your Unity registry. Now it will take a few seconds to fetch the recent packages, right? So give it the time it needs. And once it does that, what you have to do is search for AR Foundation. Now install that particular plugin. And once AR Foundation has been installed, you have to install something called AR Core XR plugin. Now, let's say if you also want to build for iOS devices, then along with the AR Core plugin, you also have to install AR Kit plugin, right? Other than that, there's the only difference is that you have to set up the build settings for iOS separately. That's it. There are no more, you don't have to put any more changes within your project. So once AR Foundation has been installed, you have to install AR Core XR plugin. So search for it, simply install it, that's it. Now, once both of these plugins are installed, the next thing you have to do is you have to go to Edit, then I think it was Project Settings. Yeah, you have to go to the Project Settings. Then you have to go to this Player Settings. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. So you have to go to this player settings. Now, the more easier way would be if you go to File, then Build Settings, then directly click on this player setting. Either way, you will be getting to the same settings as required. Now, once you are into the player setting, right, what you have to do is you have to go to Resolution and Presentation and change the default orientation to Portrait, because this is not an landscape orientation application. So we need it Portrait. Apart from that, you have to go to Other Settings. Uncheck this Autographics API, because as of now, Vulkan is not really supported. But recently at Google I/O, Google announced that the future versions of AR Core will be supporting Vulkan. But the current version we are using doesn't really support Vulkan graphics API. So simply just remove it. Now, apart from that, we got multi-threaded rendering. Uncheck it. We don't need it. Then from there, you have to go to this minimum API level, change it to Android 7.0, that is API level 24, because that's the bare minimum Android version AR Core requires to run. Apart from that, we got the scripting backend. You have to change it to IL to CPP, because currently it is set up in Mono. And once you have done that, you have to go to this ARM64 and make sure to check it, right? Make sure it is enabled, because ARM64 helps you get the 64-bit architecture support. Now, from there, almost every settings are configured. The next thing you have to do is you have to go to XR Plugin Management and make sure to turn on AR Core Plugin Provider. And that's it. Your project, that is build settings, is set up properly. Now, what you have to do is you have to add the current scene to your build settings. So I'm simply going to click on Add Open Scenes. So that way, we set up our whole build process. Now, let's import the assets, right? Let's design the UI first, then we will get into the coding part. So again, I have packaged the assets into a small Unity package called Furnish AR.Unity package. Now, all these assets are already available in the LMS. So to download these assets, you have to go to the LMS and get these assets for yourself. Now, just simply drag and drop this Furnish AR asset, or you can say Unity package, into your project folder and simply click on import. The next thing you have to do is just simply go to the assets folder. You will be finding two more different folders. One is for the UI. It contains 3 different UI buttons. And then we have the furnitures, which actually contain the models that we have. Now, if you see on your right side, you should be able to see this small window for visualizing the prefabs. Now, in most of the cases, it might happen that you might not find this window. That's because sometimes it's minimized. So you have to go at the bottom and you can see that there's this 2 very small lines. You have to drag it to the top and you'll be able to visualize your furniture model. Okay. Similarly, I got another one that is this light brown one. And then again, there's another one. call this white sofa. Now, this white sofa looks much better than the other three, of course. But yeah, this is how you can visualize these sofas. And you can also drag and drop it to the scene if you want. Okay. Now, let's delete it for now because we are not going to need it as of now. The next thing we have to do is we have to create the user interface. Okay. Now, the base idea behind the user interface would be to switch between these models, right? To switch between these three models. Now, let's create the UI first. The very first thing you have to do that I would suggest, right? This is what I actually do is I dock my game window to the right side. Okay. Then from there, you can see there's this drop down called free aspect, right? Now, we don't really need this free aspect. What we want is we want to use a template. Now, if you haven't really added a template, a custom template to your game window, you can either use one of the already provided templates, but I have added a few of these in my Unity project, so I'm going to use that. Now, I've shifted to one of my templates. And once the template is open, there's another thing you should do is in the scene window, you should be able to find this 2D mode. Okay. So simply switch to the 2D mode because that would be really helpful while designing the user interfaces or doing anything in 2D. Okay. So once these are done, the next thing you have to do is you have to create a canvas. Now, simply right click in the hierarchy, go to UI, and then create a canvas component, or you can say canvas game object. Now, once you've created a canvas, there are two things. Okay, one is this canvas. Now, this canvas is responsible for setting up the UI and doing all the stuff regarding the UI. But this event system is a very important part. The reason why it is very important, the event system actually handles all the events that is happening within your user interface, right? For example, the tap of a button. If this event system is not available, what is going to happen is you will not be able to interact with the user interface at all. So it is very important to have the event system if you want to interact with the UI within your Unity project. But apart from that, that's it. And now if we take a look at the canvas, we got this something called canvas scaler. Now, in here, you should be able to find something called UI scale mode. This is a very important thing, okay? Because constant pixel size is, doesn't really make your UI responsive. So you have to change it to scale with screen size, which is going to help you, create a more responsive user interface for your application. Once you've switched your, UI scale mode to scale with screen size, the next thing you actually have to do is, create 3 buttons. Now, you can either use the default buttons that Unity or TextMesh Pro provides us with, but here's what I would suggest is going for an image, then adding a button component to it. It makes it much more easier because if you go with a button component, a predefined button by Unity or TextMesh Pro, it's going to take you a lot of time just to set the UI to it, delete, and that's a lot of hassle that we don't want to go right now into, okay? So here's what we are going to do. Select the canvas, right click, go to UI, add an image. Okay. Now, I think the proper size of the image would be 200 by 200. So simply go to this width and height option and change it to 200 by 200. Okay. And then add a button component. Okay. See, without the button component, this image will just be an image. So we need this particular button component to be able to provide the button functionality to this particular image. Okay. So once that is done, you can change its name to some maybe to one of your prefabs, or you can say one of your furnitures. So I'm going to name this one white sofa because that is one of the furnitures. And once you've named this, just save your scene. And then the next thing you have to do is you have to anchor it. Okay. You have to anchor this particular image, or you can say this button, to the bottom left of your UI. So again, to do it, simply press Alt on your keyboard. Then in the rect transform component, you can see that this center middle option in here, right? So select that, press Alt, and then simply select this bottom left option. And you can see that this particular UI component got anchored at the bottom left of the UI. Now duplicate it. Now name it yellow. I think it was something called yellow light brown sofa, I guess. Yeah, it was light brown sofa. Okay. Now what you have to do is you have to anchor it to the center. So again, press Alt on your keyboard, select the same option, then anchor it to the center. Okay. Now again, duplicate it. After duplicating it, change its name to brown sofa. Then select the anchor again, press Alt, then put it to the right side, or you can say the bottom right of the UI canvas. The next thing you would want to do is select all these three and change its position while to maybe 200. Is 200 too big? Maybe let's go for 150. Yeah, 150 seems reasonable. And from there, select the white sofa, change its position X to 150, and select the brown sofa, and again change brown sofa's position X to -150. Okay, so that way we got a pretty even user interface. Okay, now the next thing you would want to do is to apply the sprites, or you can say the button images, to these specified buttons. Okay, so select the white sofa. Now in here you should be able to find something called source image. Now here's a little dot in here, so select that dot and you should be able to find all the sprite or images that are already available. So I'm going to search for sofa right here, and you can see that we got the option for 3 different sofas. Now the first button would be for the white sofa, so I'm going to select the white sofa. The second one would be for the light brown sofa, so I'm going to check for the light brown sofa, and then I'm going to check for the third one, I'm going to check for the simple brown sofa. And again, it is already available on the top, so I don't really have to search for it. And this way, you set up your user interface properly. Okay. Now, the next thing we have to do is we have to write the script. Okay. Now, there are a few things that you always have to keep in mind. And before that, we actually have to set up our scene. Okay. We created the UI. The next thing we have to do is we have to set up our scene. So delete the main camera, because main camera is not for augmented reality. You have to add AR session origin and AR session. So simply right click in the hierarchy, go to XR, add an AR session origin, and then again add an AR session. Now drag and drop both of these to the top, because this just a convention that I follow. It it makes things much more simpler for me and much more organized for me. Now, once you select this AR session origin, you have to add 2 different components. Okay. Now, both of these components are very necessary for placing the objects into the real world. So let's see how you can do the same. So the very first thing you have to add is an AR raycast manager. Okay. Now, AR raycast manager would be responsible for shooting the raycasts that would, at the very end, would help you place the objects at a particular position. Okay. The next thing you have to add is an AR plane manager. Okay. Now the AR plane manager would be responsible for detecting your real ground, right? Your real surface. And then it would be responsible for generating artificial planes on top of it. Okay. And also reset the transform of your AR foundation. That would be much better. But yeah, these are the responsibilities of AR raycast manager and AR plane. Okay. The next thing I would suggest is to create 3 different folders, one for materials, one for prefabs, and one for scripts. Now, of course, I have my reasons, so we will get into that. Now, create a folder called materials. Okay. Create another folder called prefabs. Sorry, I think I named it wrong. Yeah, prefabs. Then create another for scripts. Okay. Now, scripts will be storing the script files, the prefabs will be storing the prefabbing files, and the materials will be storing the material files. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to visualize the planes that are being generated. Okay. So how can you do that? It's again pretty simple. Just right click in the hierarchy, go to XR, add an AR default plane. Okay. Simply, the next thing what you can do is you can assign a material to it. It already has a material, okay, but I wouldn't really suggest you going for that material. So go to your materials folder, create a new material. So I'm going to create a new material and I'm going to call it plane map. Okay. Now I want it to be transparent. So in the materials, I'm going to go to rendering mode, change it to transparent, and then I'm going to convert its alpha value to full 0. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is I am going to select this AR default plane, go to its material section, simply drag and drop my material up in here. And then if I go to prefab, I simply have to drag and drop this AR default plane into the prefabs folder, and it will be converted into a prefab. Okay. Now once that has been done, go to your AR session origin and add this AR default plane to this plane prefab reference variable. Okay. So this is it. We actually properly set up our whole project so that it can support AR Foundation, and we also set up our UI. So what's next? Okay. The next thing is we have to now learn to place the object, right? Switch between those objects, and we have to switch it in a way so that it doesn't really affect the placement of our objects. Okay. Because there's a technique to do that. Now why am I saying this? Now, if you if you use the simple placement stuff that I taught you in the previous lecture video, okay, if you configure it to place different objects, switch between those furniture by click of a UI button, there will still be a problem. The problem is, let's say when you are pressing any sort of button in the UI, okay, it's still gonna place it. Of course it's gonna change, but it's still gonna place it when you are pressing at that button. Now, that is not a behavior we want. The behavior we want is when we are pressing on the buttons, it should only change these furniture. Okay. It shouldn't place at the moment. We only want to place it when we tap on a screen outside of these buttons. So that's the functionality we are looking for. Okay. Now, of course, the script is totally same as it was for the previous lecture, just with a few modifications. And in the previous lecture, I forgot to write a piece of code, okay, which is very necessary, right? Of course, it won't break the functionality within your application. It won't crash your application, but it's a better option to do it, because without that, it's going to throw an exception. So let's start writing our script. Okay. So you have to create a script. I'm going to name it, let's say, what should I name it? Let's name it Furniture Placement Manager. Okay. So I'm going to name it Furniture Placement Manager. Okay. Now simply open the script in your Visual Studio Code. And once you've opened it, just remove the start and update method. Okay. Because believe me, it just makes things much more, cluttery. Just a second. It's returning some errors for some reason. So let me restart the editor once, because sometimes it happens with Visual Studio Code. This doesn't really happen with Visual Studio all the time, but I have seen it happening with Visual Studio Code all the time. So yeah, let's remove the start and update method. The next thing you want to do is you want to define a few variables. Okay. But before that, you have to include a few namespaces. Now there are two very important namespaces because they give us the functionality. They give us access to the APIs of AR Core and AR Foundation. Okay. So you have to write these two lines, that is using Unity Engine. Just a second. Unity Engine.xr.AR Foundation, and also add Unity Engine.xr.AR Subsystems. Okay. So these are the two namespaces we are gonna require for now. Of course, there are two more namespaces that we need to include, but we will go into that later on in this video itself. Okay. So you have to see the functionality is the same. That is, we have to implement the touch functionality. We have to shoot a raycast to place the objects. We also have to implement a simple function to switch between these furnitures. Apart from that, there's another thing, that is we have to make sure whenever we are pressing a UI button, we don't place that object at that very moment. Okay. So let's write the code for it. So let's create the reference variables at first. First of all, I'm going to create a reference variable which will be storing our default furniture. Okay. So I'm going to call it public game object spawnable furniture. Okay. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to define a variable that will be referencing the AR session origin, and I'm going to call it session origin. Again, I'm going to do the same for the AR raycast manager, and I'm going to call it raycast manager. And then again, the same for the plane manager. Okay, so AR plane manager, where I'm going to call it plane manager. Okay. And I'm also going to create a private list of raycast heads, right? So whenever we are shooting any sort of raycast into the real world, it gets stored in this particular list, because we will be accessing this list to get the positional data. So private list AR raycast head, I'm going to call it raycast heads equals new list raycast head, and voila, we actually initialized all the particular variables that we are going to need. Okay, so save the script, go to your Unity engine and let it load. Now make sure to attach the script to your AR session origin. Now simply drag and drop the components in here, that is the session origin, then the raycast manager, and then the plane manager. And select the default furniture. You can select this particular dot option in here, go to the assets and select the default furniture you want to have. Now I want to have the white sofa as the default furniture. Okay, so I have set the spawnable furniture to the white sofa. Now once these are done, we have to write the functionality so that we are able to place the object into the real. Okay, so I'm going to explain the logic very briefly. So keep your ears open and try to understand it properly. So write this update method. The very first thing you have to check for, and this is what I missed in the previous lecture. Okay, you have to check for if there are any touch on the screen. Okay, then only you have to look for if the person has touched on it or not. Okay, so first of all, you have to look for if there are any sort of touch that has happened or is happening within your particular application. So to do that, you have to write this if condition, if input dot touch count is greater than 0. Okay, and if there are one or more touches, what we want to do is we want to start, that is we want to check if the touch has happened or not. Okay, so if input dot get touch 0, you have to put 0 as a parameter because we want to get the very first touch, and then touch dot face equals touch face dot began. Okay, so that way whenever you tap on the screen, this particular function is being called. Okay, now inside this function we have to shoot a raycast. So raycast manager dot raycast. Now inside this you have to provide the touch position. Now in the previous lecture I showed you that you could use the input.mouse function, but in this I'm also going to show you the other way around, that is input.getTouch.position. Okay, now there are not many difference in it. The only difference is that the input.mouse position works universally, that is it will work for Windows, MacBooks or any sort of platform, right, where the touch is happening. But this input.getTouch.position only happens on your Android or iOS device that has a touch screen. Okay, so let's do it. So input.getTouch 0.position. The next thing you have to do is you have to pass the raycast heads, and then you have to set the trackable type to plane with polygon. Okay, now once it shows the raycast and the raycast has hit that particular ground, it's going to return us a Boolean value. Okay, that is either it has hit that particular generated plane or not. So we are going to write a Boolean collision variable, okay, to detect if the collision has happened. And if the collision has happened, what we generally want to do is we want to place that object to the position and the to the position of the raycast and to the position rotation of that raycast. Okay, so if collision has happened, what we want to do is we want to instantiate the game object first. So I'm going to name it object equals instantiate spawnable furniture. Then I'm going to set the transform, the position of this particular object to the position of the raycast head. So object.transform.position equals, what was it called? Raycast heads 0 dot pose dot position. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same, but for this time for the rotation. Okay. So I'm going to simply name the position to rotation. Do the same for this particular object. Now, once that has been done, this will actually help us place the object onto the real world. Okay. Apart from this, there's another thing that we have to do is whenever we have placed our first object, we want to disable the planes, right? We don't want to, because if the planes are still visible, even after placing that object, it's going to make the experience very much unrealistic. And we don't want unrealism if we are going to build a very immersive augmented reality application. So to do that, you have to loop through the place that has been generated. So for each var planes in plane manager dot trackables. Now these trackables actually store all the planes that has been generated. So you have to do it like this: planes dot game object dot set active false. Okay, that way you can set all the planes that has been generated to false. And the last thing you have to do is you have to disable the plane manager so that no more artificial planes are generated. So plane manager dot enabled equals false. Now you can save your script. Okay, you can simply save your script and load it in Unity. But there are a few more things that you have to do. Okay, the first thing you have to do is you have to be able to switch between these furnitures. Okay, so open your script again. See, this function is pretty simple. It's just a one-liner code. You have to create a public function, that is public void switch furniture. Let's call it switch furniture for now. Okay. Then you have to pass a game object as a parameter. I'm going to call it for nature. Now you can simply, what you can do is you can reference the spawnable furniture, that is spawnable furniture, and set it to the furniture available as a parameter. Okay, now save it. Go to your Unity engine. Now select the UI buttons that you have. Add an event action to this on-click function. Drag and drop your AR session origin. Go to this particular function. Select the furniture placement manager and then click on switch furniture. Okay. Then select the white sofa. Go to this white dot and select the white sofa prefab. Now do the same for the light brown one too. Then again the same for the brown sofa. Now once these are done, you should be able to successfully switch between those objects. Okay, but there's still a problem. Okay, now see, this script is enough for you to be able to place detect planes, then place these furnitures over to your place. But right now the problem that persists is, even if you click, while you are clicking on the UI, let's say if I'm clicking on the UI right now, the object will be placed at that moment. Now, this is not something we want. There's a very unexpected behavior and a very bad behavior also. We don't want that kind of behavior in our application. You have to create a very simple Boolean function that would check if your button has been pressed or not. Okay. And if your button has been pressed, if your button is being pressed, you don't want to place at that moment. If your button is not being pressed, then only you want to place it. Okay. So you have to write this particular function, public bool. Bool is the return type of that function because we'll be returning a Boolean type that is it would either be a false or either be a true. And then you have to name that function. I'm going to call it is button pressed. Now, before writing the code inside it, okay, you have to add two more namespaces. One is for accessing the UI button, that is using Unity engine dot UI. Then also add an event system, unit, because that's how we will be accessing the button. So Unity engine dot, I think it was called event systems. Yeah, this is it. Now, once you have added these two namespaces right here, let's code this particular function. Okay. So if event system dot current dot current selected game object. Now we are going to put this question mark in here. Now this question mark is more of a short form for null check. Okay, then we have to get the component. Now I feel like if you don't want to use this question mark, you can also use another option called try get component. But for now, as I've already used this question mark, I'm gonna use the get component in here. Okay, so get component. Now inside this, we have to get the button component because that's the UI component we will be pressing on. Okay, then I'm gonna check if it is null. Okay, now if the button is null, we want to return false. That is, if we haven't pressed on the button, we want to return false. And if we have pressed on it, then we are going to return true. Okay, as simple as that. Now, the next thing you have to do is you have to go to this if condition where the collision is being checked. You have to add this AND operator, and then you have to check if the button pressed is false or not. So is button pressed equals false. So that way we have completed our script, and this script is actually going to help us to place the object properly without the UI interfering us anymore. Okay. The next thing you have to do is you have to click on File, click on Build Settings. Then if you already haven't added the sample scene, you have to add that particular scene you are working on. Then you have to click on Build, and you can name anything your build. Now the better way, this is I make use of this particular method. I create a new folder. Okay, I create a new folder called builds. Now this builds folder contains all the builds that I made. Okay, that way it's I am able to keep track of all the builds that I have built in the previous implementations. That way I can test for the bugs and all of that. So it's a pretty handful method. So yeah, that's about it. This will build the application, and after it builds, I will try it on and put attach a video of the demo to to the end of this video. So that's it for this lecture. Thank you.